right? So, if you got problems, you just need a little bit more of me, all right? That tends to be a thing that money can say. What I want you at your table, just kind of talk. Are there other things, all right, helpful or unhelpful? It doesn't have to be negative only. But are there other things that you think money tends to say and get stuck in your mind? All right? Talk about their table. What are some other money talks?
You always heard the saying, save up for the rainy day. Which do you save up? Do you save up to be able to pass it on to your kids or whatever else? Where are the numbers?
This morning, I was asking Jeremiah, on the main channel.
Just a bit. Well, a friend of mine, financial advisor, she always said, and it's amazing that she's a lot of doctors that she financial advisor for, and she goes, a lot of them, if they lost their job, they'd be bankrupt in just a short time because all of a sudden they've got the 3-stall, garage and the boat. And, I need now also a shed for the jet skis and all these other things.
I think the upper mean is right to the top of their pay scale on there, and like say something happens.
I'm going to give you one more minute on this one. We're going to ask this one every week, so. All right, who wants to share one? So we're going to talk about this question every week, so we'll get more time if you haven't shared totally, but who has one they want to share? I'll try to listen and then say out loud, especially for those joining us on live stream. So it's, you know what amazes me? I was telling Pastor Andy this when he visited last week. He's like, there are so many people in your adult Bible study. You know how many churches wish they had this? So I was like, yeah, and you want to know what? The cool other thing is there's a ton of people that watch it online after, too. So if you're watching online, thank you. And it gives you an opportunity to think about it here, too. So anybody have one they want to throw out? Another thing money says.
Tells that you're successful.
Okay, so yeah, it's speaking in your ear like successful or the flip side, right? Not successful or important or not important. Okay, that's a good one. What else? Yes.
The more money you have, the happier you'll be.
Yes, the more money you have, the happier you'll be. Yeah, that's definitely a thing that's said, and then it's also a trap too. Other thoughts? Yeah.
Try not to be political with paying off student loans. Kids are now thinking, I'm not going to pay this off right now because I'm just going to keep this. I know the government's going to pay it.
So somebody else will do it. Yeah. So yeah, there can be this is 0% political to that exact, because even saying anything off that could, but just in general, like, somebody else will help me. Use somebody else's. Yeah. Other thoughts? Yep.
Money is security.
Okay, there you go. So money says, how firm a foundation, right? The church is one foundation. It's all our saving accounts. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, then you're like, it's probably true, but at the same time, like, never actually sing that, all right? And if I actually ever sing that in church and, like, actually legitimately, like, call the elders, all right? Yes. Mick will do it. He's got the L. That's why they have the name tags, all right? Yes. Other thoughts?
But the thing about that security,
Uh-huh.
when is it enough?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's, what's the word? Subjective, right? Everybody will think a different level. Yeah, that's right. For somebody's security level can like be way down here with little, and some can, yeah, that's a good point. Any other ones? All right, now we're gonna go, oh, we got one more. This is a Navy conversation.
If you put your money in gold, that's better than the paper money, right?
There you go. Yeah, gold.
Big rush to do that, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I haven't rushed there. Yeah. Yes.
Just one more thing, from your sermon, if then, we were talking here at the table where people, the more money they get, of course, the more they want.
Uh-huh.
So it's never enough, and we were talking about how, you reach one goal and then it's time for the next one.
Yeah, get, more. Now, there is a side where the, reach a goal and then strive for the next one is an important part in our holy vocations, right? Because God wants us, like, striving, right? Working hard. Like, whatever you do it as for the Lord, right? But when it becomes what drives, that's where we get in big trouble, because there is always more. There is always another hill to climb, and then sometimes you fall all the way down one. Yeah. All right, we're going to go now deeper at your table. So I'm going to put two things up for discussion at your table, right? So discuss both these points. So first point, financial decisions expose our deepest desires and our deepest idols, right? Yes, no, what do you think? All right. Then discuss this one. They go together. Our giving habits at church are an indicator of our spiritual health, and this is why churches must talk about it. All right? Discuss that at your table. Resonate, not resonate, what do you think? All right, go for it. Told you it's getting deeper.
So, for some people, maybe, I don't think so, because somebody can give an awful lot and have no spiritual thing. They just give. Relieve their conscience and stuff like that. Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing good.
Sorry, I'm not trying to wreck a conversation.
To me, I think that means if you believe and you're committed, you want to give and help people and expand
Now that
churches and foundation. That's all I look at. First one I can't get into. I'm not sure my bad. Financial decision is financial decision. But financial decision probably means how much you give for church,
How much you want to take a loan out for that new shiny that new car? Could you have gone by with the used car with 100,000 miles on it right now? Or did you have to take a big loan to get that new BMW?
There you go, that sounds good. Pretty nice. Didn't hate it. And then started preaching and tithing
And there's a lot of different ways I would have tithing with your time and talents and stuff. You get people teaching Sunday school.
That's just money. People give, being a nurse, my wife being a career. That's the way she feels. Yes.
If we all tithe in this
But you can tithe first and then give the other.
Well, they used to say 25% of each congregation give money, the rest.
All right, 1 minute.
No, might be better here.
Yeah. Well, not overall.
Well, his comment, Pastor's comment, it means
At this time.
Oh, I think. I thought you said in addition to our tithe.
All right. Come together as a big group here. Who has anything they want to share? And I'll try as good as I can to repeat out loud what you said. Who wants to share? Anything you discussed at your table? Yes.
Kind of swerved into this thing where once you get to a certain age, like old, you start trying to get rid of the stuff that you thought you needed.
Okay.
About how you got a dumpster.
Okay.
Get rid of that.
So there's a stage you potentially get to where suddenly you're like, man, all the stuff I thought I needed is now I don't need anymore, and might even be a burden to those coming behind me. So let's purge and get rid of things. So yeah, so different stages of life can show different idols, right? And then sometimes you can get to one stage of life and think, I worked so hard for that, and now it's not even important anymore. Yeah, well, that's a good point. What else? Yes.
And I think, you know, I was widowed very young, and I didn't have any, I mean, I had a small life insurance policy that essentially bought my house.
Okay.
And then it was go to work, I had a small pension plan, and I worked, and I was a good steward, I think, of what I was able to accumulate and save and be a good steward. So I never, it wasn't like, okay, so I've got a job, now I can buy a whatever. I never did that. And now at this point, I think that I have, it's not like my monthly income, you know, it covers my expenses. But it isn't, I always think that what I give now is just a benefit of being a good steward.
Throughout life.
When I didn't have it.
Yeah,
Much to be a good steward, but I was very careful with
Okay, so she's saying that she's now at a stage of life where she looks back and she can say, what I'm giving now and the generosity I can have also is because of the stewardship I did throughout life, especially in a hard season, right? I think Dave Ramsey likes to say, live like no one else so you can give like no one else. But then as he's saying that, he's also challenging you still, the first thing you have to think about is giving, right? So it's not like you're waiting to give, but you're stewarding in a specific way so you can be in a place one day to be even more generous. Yeah, no, good point. Any other thoughts on this? Yes.
Well, the second one just ties in right with the widow and her giving her mites. You know, she gave very little, but it was a lot of what she had, versus the people that may just give a lot, so it looks like, well, they must be very spiritual, but not necessarily. So it isn't an indication. Just the funds.
Who is it? So this ended shortly before I started paying any attention, because as a kid I wasn't paying attention. But I paid attention to some things, but not other things, right? So, how many of you were in a church where it listed members and their giving? Who? Huh? That was a topic of conversation, yeah. Does anybody remember that in a positive way? Yeah, that's fine. What's the positive side?
So it was always a family of 6 or 7 kids, and to look at what they gave
Okay.
was awesome. And
So you saw the generosity of a specific family and how much they prioritized that. So there was the inspiration side. That the family that gives like that probably isn't the family that's not going to go around just be saying they gave. So you saw it because it was there. Yeah, there's the inside. I know one church that they make their, they do this type of check on them, but they make their money counters like constantly cycle, and that's why they want multiple people within the church to see the generosity that some people, because generosity inspires generosity. Do you have a positive?
Well, I think it was trust, and that's what the bottom part is as well.
Uh-huh.
If you're trusting in God providing, you're going to provide.
Uh-huh.
The church that I grew up in that did this, I mean, it was probably 50-ish or more percent farmers and dairy
Uh-huh.
farmers. You talk about the ultimate trust. I mean, you put a seed in the ground.
Yeah. No, that's
You don't have
true.
any control over what's going to happen next.
Yeah, not at all, right?
And
Yes.
so that was kind of hooked together with the giving that I saw as a young kid. It was like, whoa, that person gave that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You saw the trust.
Yeah, there's an inspiration when you get to see that. I think we might be in a time now, well, if we started that here, I think that'd be like a major shock. But yeah, I think there is some good, like, right? And so, okay, we might not list in our bulletin, and we don't want to go out and be like proud, right? Because like Gia says, like, give with one hand so the other hand doesn't know what you're doing. But on the other side, there's at least a like, how I serve and act and steward in the kingdom can also model for someone else how they could steward, act, and give within the kingdom. And then here's the flip side of that. All of us are doing that exact sentence. Are you modeling a positive, or are you modeling a negative, right? We're all modeling it, especially if we have kids or family, they're watching, right? And I think like that Kurt Fear here a couple weeks ago, I mean, what does it tell your family when you like sit down at passing and they see you giving a gift to your church? But also like you can make statements of faith that go along with your will, right? Like what does it tell your family when you're like, this is what I want you to know. Like this is important to me. Like that's probably more important than the gift. But the gift also shows like, I didn't just say it, it's true. I saw another hand. Anybody? Yep.
I think that the listing of, now I didn't go to church to list people as they gave stuff.
Uh-huh.
But when you see a family of 5 or 6 kids and that's wow, it's a wow moment. But I looked also at what was modeled by my parents, and that was faith. They never missed a Sunday. It was
Uh-huh.
on, it was always in there, and they would never combine it, books, they would take to it, stuff.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing, and they were faithful givers.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that doesn't ever show on paper.
Uh-huh.
But it shows in my mind and how I.
Yeah, so you remember as a kid, you remember this statement in action from your family. I think I said this last year, but so interesting, at Redeemer, once, we got past like some of the COVID restrictions, the offering plate was still not going, the houses were back there. There's a lot of churches that haven't brought the offering plate back because giving's actually gone up when people can just, it's not, there's no feel like you have to, right? It's just give as you, so there's some churches that didn't go back. You know why Redeemer went back and brought it out? Well, actually we have both. So there are multiple elders that had kids that said, I can still do this at home, right? Like I can sit down and they can see what I fill out and they can help me put in the house. But there is something that just feels a little more special when your kids watch you do it in the service. So there are people for that modeling part This year my family tried the online giving because I've been talking about it with people and more are using it, and it's a blessing, so I wanted to experience it myself. And I like the first fruits, and it just happens, right? It's there all the time, so I like that part of it. But now I'm coming back to, how do I make sure my kids know that this is happening? And like I told one person, I might even start doing this, like, you can give online, you can still fill your offering envelope, have nothing in there, and just put it in. Like if for your kids' sake, right? Because they don't understand. You're trying to model. I wouldn't do it because it's like my neighbor's going to judge me if I don't put it. We don't want that, right? But yeah, I'm trying to figure out how we bring this back to make our kids see. Because when I was growing up, this wasn't talked about. When I found this and found the actual freedom, at the beginning it was tough. When you went from never doing this to being all in, it was a challenge at start, but now there is like freedom and joy in this. So this is why the church should talk about it though, right? Because these decisions do show our desires, and yes, we don't like to use the word, but idol is not just I have a wood shop and I made a sacred image, right? Idol is anything you fear, love, and trust above God, right? And then yes, giving habits are a good indicator of our spiritual health, and the health as a family and the health of us as an individual. So then, and you don't have to say this at your table, but just think, like, what do my giving habits say about my spiritual health? And with Molly's comment, what are my giving habits saying about spiritual health to other eyes that might be watching me, especially kids? All right, I'm going to just put a couple verses up here and then show an image. So Exodus 19, all the earth is mine. 1 Chronicles, everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from what? Your hand, right? Or I love Deuteronomy, when the people go in the land and the God says, you're going to go in this land, you're going to start working, and then you're going to forget that it all came from me. And they go in the land, and what do? They forget it all came, even though he specifically told them that was going to happen. All right, next one. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Every animal of the forest is mine, and the cattle on 1,000 hills. Everything under heaven belongs to me. There's many other verses we could do with this, but here, different mindset, right? I think a lot of Christians think about our money and possessions like this picture, right? So it's mine, and then maybe I'll give some to God, right? What about this picture? Now this is no longer the 10% box anymore, but it's thinking, hey, the things in my life are what? God's, and yeah, there's some of that I'm going to use for my personal use. What's the difference between the images? Focus? What do you mean?
Well, if everything belongs to God, we're focusing.
Yeah, if everything belongs to God, you're focusing on God, right? How easy it is for us to take the gift and forget about the giver, right? Because we're so focused on the gift. What else? What's the difference between the images?
The hand on the head tells me that person is so worried.
Okay, yeah. That's awesome, because I've looked at this image multiple times and my brain is only ever focused down here. So you said that, like, they're the same. They're not the same. Yeah, so there's anxiety and worry there. And then over here there's a peace and joyfulness, right? Or like Pastor Malmy's sermon a couple weeks ago from Ecclesiastes, that your life is filled with the delight of the Lord because you're working for Him, right? What else? Anything else? Yep.
Everything's God's, and I wish you'd come over to my house and fix a few things that belong to Him.
Yeah. Yeah. So God, it's all yours. Why is this broken? Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, isn't that on all our minds at times? it's really all the Lord's, and then we forget, like, we are on this side of the fall, and we're on this side of the return of the Lord and the resurrection. But yeah, you're right, there's that too. Any other thoughts on this?
I think like, I see it's probably similar to the picture, when we say it's all mine, it's like, oh, I gotta get 10% of mine.
Uh-huh.
Or, if you have a focus of it's God's, and it's gift.
Yeah, so all mine, and then when you change it, it's like a focus on God, so give, right? I mean, even look at the arms, right? This one, there's like a clinging, right? And I mean, I will admit, if you take any like money thing ever, you know what I am? I'm a saver, all right? I am definitely, to the point where sometimes my financial planner has to remind me, like, you save that to use it for those fun things, so do that. It's like, yeah, but I saved it, right? So yeah, there's this grabbing, right? We all struggle with it, and over here there's this freedom, right? It's the Lord's. I don't have to hold on as tightly. I can let go. All right, I saw one over here. Did you have a hand? Hit it? All right. You got one? Okay. Other thoughts? All right, so yeah, this is a biblical mindset, right? It's all God's. Some has been used for my personal. And then because it's a good reminder, like sometimes it's like, okay, this is all mine. I'll give this some to God. But you know what? Like, yeah, God throughout the Bible wants us to do like personal planned proportionate giving to his church and his kingdom. Like that's there. But I think God's also just as concerned of what we do with the other 90. Right? Because it's all his. So are we using it for his purpose and his glory? Right? Yes. All right, so that comes to then what I just handed out. We're going to look at this for a moment, and then we're going to jump into a text in the Bible. So if you want to take out the pledge form, two sides of this pledge form, then I just want you to think about it for just a moment on your own. So next week, leaders are going to come up first, pray over the congregation, and then all of us can bring it forward. So the side you think about is the pledge side, and this is where you actually pick weekly to yearly, whatever. I mean, people use all of these. Then you give your actual allocation. So I want this much of that dollar number going to missions, which that's, I mean, we tend to, within our budget, we try to be around 13% at least of what, like of our whole budget is going to mission outside Redeemer. We try to be around there. And then local ministry, which is also missions, right? You just can't write missions on both because it would confuse us. But it's all that. And then you can, if you want online giving or things like that. So there's this side to fill out. And then the other side, we're going to actually, I'll just take a moment to read this. And this is why stewardship, we would love to have 100% participation in this pledge drive. We also realize asking that there's grace, because I think last year we were probably around like 28% participation in the pledge drive. All right, so if we set our budget based off pledges, our budget would be less than a third, all right? So we understand that, but thinking both sides, now some people aren't always ready to do this. Some people ask me every year, like, hey, can I turn the pledge in January when I know a little bit more? Like I know kind of what's happening at work, and it's like, fine with me, turn it in then, right? But I think all of us can prayerfully do this, and I can challenge all of us to think about this. So the stewardship way of life is this, thinking back to our images before. I hereby acknowledge God's ownership of me and all, and then notice my, in quotes, money and possessions, as well as everything else I ever imagined I own, including my family and loved ones. Instead of seeing myself as the ultimate recipient, I will see myself as God's delivery person. I will enjoy what He intends me to keep and cheerfully let go of what He intends me to share or give away. From this point forward, I will think of all these assets as His to do with as He wishes. I will ask God to help me understand the Bible's instructions about stewardship and how He wishes me to manage and invest His assets to further His kingdom. I realize this will mean surrendering some temporary treasures and downsizing my earthly kingdom. I do so. In doing so, I will upsize God's kingdom and gain eternal treasure. This will decrease my worry and guilt and increase my eternal perspective, joy, and contentment, and deepen my love for Jesus, my Savior and King. I do this all for His glory and for the good of all. That's the way of life that our stewardship team prays for and desires in all of us. Now, the good news, including our stewardship team, will anybody do this perfectly? No. Thankfully, God's done it all for us, right? But we're striving and challenging to be better. As you think about this, one other note, in case you've never heard this before. So whatever you put on here, there's one person that, then they do it all in one day. So like if I do it all in one day, I can't remember uniquely to anybody because I did so many numbers. So there's only one person that actually sees the uniqueness. They put it all in a program. And then what stewardship looks at is the team is more interested in number of pledges. So Chris, how many pledges came in last year and how many pledges came in this year, right? That's what they want to know. The specific numbers you give, I don't look at, stewardship team doesn't look at, council doesn't look at, staff doesn't look at. That doesn't go anywhere. That's a pledge between you and the Lord. And God takes all our personal pledges, brings them together, and somehow gets us to a $1.3 or $1.4 million budget. All right? But that's not even why we're doing it, right? God's taking all of our first fruit giving because we're living a stewardship way of life and we're advancing His kingdom for His glory. So this will show up. The financial secretaries, when they hit print, our program every year then will print off the quarterly giving. And then you'll see up there, and it'll say, here was your pledge, and here's where you're at, and then you can see the breakdown. So that you get, because that helps sometimes you're like one time I had a homebound member go, Pastor, I gave you a check, and it's like, oh yeah, it's still in my Bible, right? So you can catch something like that. So then I created a new system so that doesn't happen again, right? So sometimes there can be a catch like that, like, oh, we missed something, or oh, that didn't work, or I started the online giving and something must have happened. You'll catch it, but also it's an accountability to help you where you at in the pledging that you pledged, right? So that's kind of a built-in, which comes to this 1 Corinthians passage. I think if you're honest with Paul's letters, I think is tithing. So tithing's like the typical 10%. I think it's a good benchmark and a good thing to think about, but I don't think it's a biblical mandate anymore. 10% was something specific for the nation of Israel. If you're looking at the New Testament, places like 1 Corinthians 16, 2 Corinthians 8, multiple different places, I think you would get these words and then another one for sure. But so you're doing personal, planned, proportionate, and sacrificial. I really think that that's the mindset of the New Testament. When as we think about our first fruits and giving to the Lord and setting aside specifically for His church and for His church to use to advance His kingdom. I'm going to give you just a moment here to just kind of look at this on your own. You don't have to talk about your table, but just start thinking about, okay, what could my potential personal plan, proportionate giving be for next year, knowing that, hey, there's grace if life happens. We have had people, right? I was doing this and then I got laid off, so I need to change it. And there's grace to give a new pledge during the year, all right? So nobody's locking you in, and stewardship and Pastor Coggin don't even know, so we won't be like, okay, this is us trying to help you think about and put this, because this is a way that helps us stop holding on and start letting go. All right? So what I just want you to do, just kind of think about what that could be. We'll give kind of a couple moments of silence. If you're watching on live stream, you can get this in our bulletin, clicking. Otherwise, you got it at your house. And then think about the lifestyle here. And you can think about it now, and then next, you got all week to think about it. Next week and the week following, you can bring it and join it with mine and our elders and council and our stewardship team as we join our pledges together. So I'm going to stop talking. For an extrovert, that can be hard for me, but I'm going to turn my microphone on.
Sure.
He said that we give anything in time of God. I truly
And I think that's
But it's that you don't have to, but I think, well, if you're a Christian, there's a change of heart. You want to be able to help out, you want to do your part, you want people to come to this beautiful building, I want them to keep the roof up, I want them to pay our pastor.
All right, let's come together. Does anybody have any questions on this actual form? Sometimes asking your question out loud, you realize there's like 5 or 6 other people thinking it. Yes. So the missions itself, so we have stuff locally. So there's things like Pablo, New Life, The Landing. I'm forgetting a bunch of them. Daryl's here. Yes.
25% roughly will go to district and synod, and that's 40,000.
Okay, so I'm going to say what he's saying. So 25% of the mission giving goes to district, which is roughly 47. All right?
No, 40.
40, yes. Got it. Yep. That's why he's the numbers guy.
Pablo, which is all local, is 47,000, so that's whatever, bigger percentage.
So yeah, then we give 47,000 to our Pablo outreach.
And then all the rest are other, and I won't go through them all, there's about 15 of them, I think, line items of varying amounts that are all, we try and like spread it out, if you will, between local, super local, meaning like here in church almost, and then like regional, and then global.
Yeah, so then outside of those, he said we try to spread out the mission giving between like local here in town, regional, and then global. So we have kind of different things in all those pots. And then we have giving that we pledge that we are going to, Redeemer is a church that gives our mission dollars first. So that is, if we pledge $47,000 or whatever it was to Pablo and $40,000 to district and we're way behind in our budget, guess what we're gonna still do? We're giving that, because we've pledged that, right? That is important. So that is like we give first, all right? And then, so then there's those buckets, and then there's the other thing, which we're gonna work on this year of trying to raise awareness on, is then we also have mission dollars like the Thanksgiving service, right? We give that whole offering away. Or this year, be on the lookout, all December you're gonna have a chance. We picked 4 local ministries, that 4 local organizations that we partner with and support. Our Christmas offering, so Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, half of that goes beyond us to them. So all December, you're gonna get a chance between these 4. I don't know what it's gonna look like yet, but actually like vote, like, hey, I think that one's the most important. Somebody else will, hey, I think that one's the most important. And then on Christmas Eve and day, we're gonna take all the money that comes in, and then we're gonna take the percentages based off the voting of those 4 organizations, and we're gonna gift it to them. To local things. So there's those types of things like services, and then there's like Advent suppers. Like our Advent suppers, Lent suppers, they're going to something specific. All right, so when there's not generosity down here and it doesn't cover the food price, well then there's a group that also doesn't get any gifting there. But I think that's more of just like an awareness. We got to help you better understand instead of just the bulletin of this is what this is going to today. So that's missions. That was a good question. Did that help? Okay. Anything else?
I also have a question. So a portion of the budget is just automatically goes to missions.
Yep.
So what happens when you give missions in your envelope separately from?
Yeah, good question. So if you are, so our budget, so just the general giving, so if you're filling out your envelope and you put, I'll just say, this is wrong, I'm just going to use easy numbers. $10 local ministry, $10 missions, right? So you have 50-50 there. All of that goes into those 2 pots. Some people give bigger percentage to missions, some give less, and for God's providence, like all that works together to roughly get us around 13% every year. The other thing though is you have the special giving line item. So if you ever go, Pablo is super important to me, and here's I wrote $10 to local, $10 to mission, and $100 to Pablo. That $100 is going to go above and beyond the 47 that we've given out. So if you put a specific special item, we don't take that and go, good, now we can give less. We take that and go, this is important to somebody, that's going to go above and beyond. I explained that right? Okay, always check in. But yeah, yes. So that's how you can do it. So yeah, some churches, they don't even have you. Redeemer likes to kind of self-report this way, so you can pick what percentage to local and missions, but knowing generally in our budget we do 13% goes outside of us and the rest is for ministry in this place, which is still mission. And then the special one gives you opportunity to give to other things. Yes?
The Pizza Ranch money goes for youth.
Yep.
One student.
Well, that's, yeah, so the Pizza Ranch, so that's fun. So then we have fundraisers that fundraise for something specific. So Pizza Ranch helps our dedicated account for youth, which then helps specifically with multiple things, but in a year like this, it's going to National Youth Gathering. And I just said the number because Josh is like, hey, it's just cool to think about the generosity of this church, because they get about, I forgot the number, they get like this much from helping at Pizza Ranch, and then they get like this much from the tips that Redeemer members give when they go, and that covers equivalent of like one whole student for like everything to go to the gathering every time, which is cool. I mean, it just shows the generosity of this church. Yes, other questions? Good time for questions. And I should do this one now we're on here. I'm going to ask and Daryl's going to answer because I'll probably answer it wrong. I turned in my envelope and I put absolutely nothing on any of them, what happens?
At that point, the policy for Anita, who actually does this process, is 10% will go to missions and the other 90% goes to local ministry.
Yeah, so if you just put nothing, which is fine, then it goes 10% to local, or to missions and the rest to the local ministry. Yes?
What happens to people that are visiting and they give a $5 bill, you know, they're not a member here? all
Same
three-
thing then. Any loose change in the, unless we have like a Sunday where we say, all loose change is going to, all the loose change gets lumped into that and then it gets split 90-10. Yes?
So did the mission organizations change what they give to from year to year, or are they pretty much?
They adjust. I mean, sometimes, you know, we adjust based on, like, we've had missions before that we were very connected with, and there's kind of champions, and that champion is now gone, and now we start connecting with something new, and there's new champions, so it can shift. Sometimes it goes up, like Pablo goes up, right, because we want to keep supporting the workers there too. But yeah, they do adjust. And that's the thing, like so when you get like at the voters meeting, that's one of the big things in January that you guys vote on. So stewardship is bringing forward a recommendation after all their hard work, but that's a recommendation to you guys. So if you ever see that, you know, hey, we should think about this for the next year. Daryl, Virginia Miller, Mike Loudy, and Brian Rongholt are all people you can go up to and say, hey, what have you thought about or think about? Because they want feedback from you all too. Is that fair, Daryl?
And the percentage we give, besides the check we put in the collection plate, there are other organizations that we give to that we include in that percentage, like Lutheran Our Ministries and Concordia and those. That includes.
If so, all the things that on the mission line item, that line on your on the envelope, or if you give online, you get the same ask. Anything that goes in there goes to the specific things that show up at that January voters meeting that we're saying is this is what our stewardship giving's to. Sometimes though we do a special drive where like Concordia St. Paul was here and we have a door offering. Or we've done more than that, but they're not coming to my brain right now. So yeah, there are some times where we do specific, just one-off things too. Any other questions? This is good, I like it. That's why we should stop. And I've been here 12 years, I just keep going, so sometimes it's good to like stop and see like what we need to think about. Because like our stewardship team, like one thing we always say in that team is like, Redeemer is a generous place and it has the heart. Sometimes we just need to give them the head knowledge and stop and remind like what these things are, right? And what that actually means. Like I just said Pablo and I didn't explain it. So some of you are new. Pablo is a big chunk of our mission giving. What's Pablo? That's our specific helping for immigrants that come to town where we teach ESL and other things to build relationships, make connections, and help them feel at home. Yes?
One point of clarification on that. We give to district and synod a pretty good chunk of money because they give to these other organizations like a Concordia, they have their own mission giving that you can look at their site online to see where they're giving money. So that's kind of our way of helping.
Lots of things.
Yeah, LCMS specific organizations that we're not specifically targeting.
Yeah.
And then the other 13 or 14 line items that we put in Redeemer's mission budget are specific targets to different organizations, which this year we've had Lutheran Our Ministries in there.
Yeah.
But not a Concordia, for example.
Yeah, district and synod support that. So like one thing you'll see in when you get our budget in the January meeting and you go all the way down, it'll say generosity goal, district and synod. So if like this church gives above and beyond our mission giving, more than planned, anything more than planned goes directly to district and synod. So there's already a place that goes. Or like, at the end of the year, especially in a vacancy, if we, give more than we need in our budget, which we did last year, then there's an equation, and so council sets aside 20% for mission, and then council determines like what mission do we want to bless specifically in this year with that, and then some goes to the endowment, and then the rest goes into the council fund for needs that happen here, which has actually been super helpful over the last couple of years, checking some things off. But yeah, the mission giving first is just like a Redeemer's not telling you and your house to do something that Redeemer as a family of believers doesn't do. All right? So our church is tithing and is generously giving, just like we're asking you to. And if we're ever asking you to and we're not, like, you should come talk to us. Other thoughts? I saw a hand somewhere. Yep.
Does Redeemer Marion Road go under all of our existing line items or?
Yeah, that's a specific expense. Redeemer Marion Road is a specific expense in our full budget. So you'll see that in January. Yep. Yeah, and that gets a good chunk of that's covered with the low end of what's happening there right now is covered with the rental of the house. But yeah, you can see all that and see what that costs each year to maintain in the budget. So January voters meeting, you get the budget. We have our voters meeting in a specific place. We do what we do as a council and all our teams in a specific time frame because we want you to have it at least a week before the meeting. So you have time to look at it, prayerfully think about it, ask questions on the side, and then come, right? But it's our pledge together as a family. Other thoughts? We're gonna run out of time. I love running out of time. Bible class, it means it was a good class. All right, well, I'm not gonna jump into this second part because if I jump into that, we're just gonna scratch the surface on that. So, I'm gonna close in a word of prayer and we're gonna get out 4 minutes early. All right. If you have any questions, I'm around, Daryl's around, Jane from endowment team, Rich from memorials and special gifts, my council member, Arnie endowment team, and I'm trying to find, there's a council member in here. Maybe I did it. No, there's not. All right. Well, they're all in that Bible class then, all right? So let's close in prayer. Dear gracious and heavenly Father, Lord, we give you thanks for today. We give you thanks for the generosity of this church. And Lord, we truly do ask that you'd help each and every one of us to take this seriously, to see our giving habits at church as an indicator of our spiritual health, and to use this pledge drive and the offering plate and all those things as an opportunity for us to reprioritize our life around you. Lord, you have given us much, and you tell us and ask us and plead with us to seek first your kingdom and trust that everything else will be added. So Lord, help us seek first your kingdom, and even with how we use our dollars and cents, give you the glory. In your name we pray. Amen. One funny thing. So who was at the first service? All right. Or maybe somebody at Saturday night? All right. So Michael held up a piece of money. It was a $5 bill. And I thought in my brain, my first thought was like, man, when I was a kid, that went so much farther. And then I thought, I bet for some of you, you were like, when I was a kid, $5 would have been like, right? And nowadays, you're like, what can my kid get with $5? Yeah.